Sure that anytime you drive to the service station, you are assured of that quality petroleum product. And also ensure that you are protected as a consumer when it comes to the petroleum space. And ensure that those who have what it takes to operate in that sector are operating, paying their required taxes, and also delivering their objective to the state. I'm talking about the National Petroleum Authority. As we look at regulation of the sector in Ghana today, are they living up to expectation as a regulator, or maybe the players are getting ahead of them? What are they doing to ensure that we have the required players in the industry, or the players are actually overtaking them? On PM Express Business Edition, we look at regulating the petroleum sector, the role of the National Petroleum Authority, and whether they're doing their job or not. Indeed, in studio, I have been joined by the Director of Economic Regulations, that is Abat Asunti, to do all these analysis on all these issues right here on PM Express Business Edition. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to PM Express Business Edition as we look at the petroleum sector regulation in Ghana today, and whether the regulator is doing its job, or they are struggling, or the player has gotten ahead of them. Abat Asunti is Director of Economic Regulations and Planning at the National Petroleum Authority. And I know you wouldn't want me to talk about, but it's not out of place to again congratulations on your designation as Director at the authority. But let me first start with first things first. With respect to the gas situation that recently caused a stir on the market and all the rest, as we speak right now, have things normalized?
Yes, things have normalized. I think when we spoke to you last week, we mentioned that this was an unusual operational challenge that occurred. Not that the LPG was not available. It was available. In fact, the vessel has just completed discharge. And then there were issues with reconciliation, which kind of delayed access to the products for the BIDEX to sell to the LPG marketing companies and OMCs, and that also caused a challenge. So that was resolved, and loading started actually last Friday. Because of that delay, we allowed extra hour loadings and even Saturday loadings as well. So as we speak, the situation has normalized, and the suppliers, as we speak, is even discharging, completed discharge of another part of that parcel today. So the situation has...
The BIDEX here are the bulk suppliers of these petroleum products.
Those we used to call BDCs.
Yeah. So what do you tell those who might say that this challenge was self-inflicted because the NPA, or the National Petroleum Authority, is trying to change the way things are done, where everyone can go out there, bring in their products? These new things is causing or causes problem, and we shouldn't have gone there in the first place.
Now, I'm sure when you talk about new things, you are referring to the competitive tender we use for importing LPG. So this is the 6th cargo under the tender program. We've imported 5 cargoes under the tender program, and we've not had any issue. And these operational issues are not new. Even before the importation of, before the start of this tender program, we've had similar issues like that. So this is not, in the industry that we operate in, such issues are not unusual. They can happen, just that they don't happen on a regular. So the tender is not the cause of this. Actually, the tender rather has brought some kind of efficiency to the way we import LPG. Previously, you had different companies, about 6 of them, all of them fighting to use the jetty to discharge their quantities of petroleum products. But the tender rather has brought about some efficiency at the jetty, where we now have 1 cargo arriving per month to discharge the LPG we need for this country, where instead of having 6 companies discharging or all fighting for the LACAM program, this led to demurrage and other costs. But now we have efficiency, and it's more coordinated now.
But Abbas, you talked about the challenges with the previous program, but we never heard that those challenges caused the delay or caused the shortfall in supply on the market. When this new thing came in, where it's seen as an improvement over the previous mechanism, we had this challenge.
No, I wouldn't say the tender is the cause of this. Logistical challenges have always happened at the depots. Sometimes they may not come into the news as this one came, but this is not the first time we've had a challenge at the depot that has affected the loading of products at the depot. But like I said, this was addressed quickly, and we allowed for extra loading. So as you see, we have products on the market. There's enough LPG in the system, so we don't anticipate.
Can I get the assurance from you that the challenge that caused this thing has been addressed, that a month later, as we get into the Christmas season, a lot of people will be demanding gas, even for domestic purposes as well. This thing wouldn't happen again.
Yes, it wouldn't. I think this was also a learning curve for us. Like you said, this occurred as part of the program. And like we've imported 5 different cargoes under the program, and this is the 6th one, and this has happened. So it only provides us an opportunity to improve things. So last week when it happened, we realized that this was as a result of maybe lack of clarity on the part of some of the players, which we addressed. The cargo is discharging now, and we've not had any issue. It's actually completed discharge today. So that gave us an opportunity to clarify some of the guidelines in the tender program. So I think this challenge in particular, you cannot say that an act of God cannot happen. This was not an act of God, but few humans operate these facilities, and anything can happen. But as far as we are concerned, this particular issue is not going to happen anymore.
You tell me that we have enough product in the system. Now, this was a product coming in, disbursing or trying to move the product along. Don't you have any mechanism where there are other reserves in the system that we can fall on, that we don't have to wait for a vessel or something to come in, and the process of discharging that product, there will be a challenge and a cascade to cause this problem on the market?
So actually, our work as MP, one of the things we do is to monitor stocks. So we always have reserves. I think just that it wasn't enough. And you see, the issue was about access to the product. Like I said, the reserve was in the tank. The products were already in the tank. It was just signing off to say that we have agreed on the quantities that were discharged. That caused a delay in selling the product. Today, for example, the cargo that's discharging, before it started discharging yesterday, we had product that was LPG that was going to last us about a month. The peculiar thing about LPG, unlike petrol and diesel, is that for petrol and diesel, you could have sometimes more than 7 weeks to last of product. LPG, we don't have inadequate storage tanks for LPG. So LPG, you can go as far as maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks to last.
Why don't we have enough?
It's about investment and also.
And as a regulator, are you encouraging the players to do that? Because any slight shortage, none that the drivers are also using their well and all those things.
So I think it's one of the reasons why we even brought about this tender program. So that ensures that we always have LPG coming in bulk. So if you look at what we have in the country, the depots have to be built by private businessmen, and I'm sure you would have noticed that within the past few years, more LPG storage terminals have been built. In Tema, for example, 2 new ones came on board recently. So with time, companies are building, and we have had a request from other companies to build LPG terminals. So I think it's improved. At some point in time, we used to rely on only tow in the Tema side until some of the private companies came on board. As we speak, we have about 5 LPG terminals in Tema, but we can do it more. So our work is to always monitor the stocks and ensure that we have a plan that ensures that we have continuous LPG coming into the system. And this tender program that we have, last week we did a tender for the supply for November and December. So already the process has gone on for companies to deliver for November and December consumption. As we speak, what has been discharged today is for the rest of October. So we have a plan, and we have Atuabo, which is producing. They had some challenges. I'm sure you heard about it last week, but they've come back on stream.
Has Atuabo fully, as far as the MP is concerned, come on stream with supplies?
So, like I mentioned, they've confirmed that the issue has been resolved.
But the problem is that because we understand that there is still some maintenance works going on. I don't know how far that is true.
They have confirmed to us that it's been resolved, but they have started producing, but they need a few days to ramp up to where they used to be. They used to produce almost 300 metric tons of LPG per day. And once they came back, they are doing about 90, so it will take some time. But the good thing is that we have enough from the import. Centio is producing. If you look at Centio's production for September,
Centio is producing LPG?
Yeah. One of the products, is a crude oil refinery.
The byproduct, yeah.
So one of the byproducts is LPG. Last month, the month of September, they produced over 5,000 metric tons of LPG. So this adds to what we've imported and what Atuabo is producing. And what we do actually, you see, even if Atuabo should be off, our work as planning is to ensure that we put in adequate measures to avoid any shortage. So if you have to put in place measures to import more in the absence of Atuabo or in the absence of Centio, for example, that's what we do.
So what is the state of our reserve position as we speak when it comes to the LPG? Do we have enough reserves in place, and what is the state of that? Yeah,
so like I told you before, this cargo completed discharge, today's opening stock could last us for about, I think, almost a week. And what has been imported today is supposed to last. It's supposed to last us more than 2 weeks. So actually, we have almost 3 weeks of stock to last. The tender we've done, that is supposed to deliver for November and December. That cargo is going to arrive between the 20th and the 27th of October. So a cargo will be arriving latter part of this month, where by that time we would have consumed what we have in stock to create more space. That's the ullage, what we call the ullage, to receive the next cargo. So the planning is done that way so that we always have products in time to consume.
CRM it's become a big challenge for the National Petroleum. You had your good intentions and all the rest. It appears that the LPG marketers are struggling to come on board. How committed is the authority to still continuously to engage these LPG operators to bring them on board? Because they have very, very genuine concerns.
So I think it's important to note that when the regulator makes policies or comes up with its implementing policies, the regulator itself is not going to be the one to commercialize those policies. It is done for the players. So LPG MCs are very critical to the CRM. In fact, if you look at the value chain, it is LPG MCs who have to sell the product to consumers. So the value chain starts from either the product is produced at the refinery or imported. Bidex will have to purchase that and then sell to LPG MCs or sell to a bottling plant. And then the bottling plant sells to the LPG MCs if it's going through the CRM channel. And if it is the regular LPG marketing company refill stations, then they will load and take it to their refill stations. So LPG MCs are very critical to this whole CRM. In fact, the cylinder exchange points are going to be run by LPG MCs. Those that are working today are being run by LPG MCs or marketing companies. Now,
is that to say that there are some LPG marketers that have now come on board?
Oh yes, we have in fact, all the cylinder exchange points that are operating today.
Based on the ones that you licensed recently, or these are old folks already in the system?
We have more than 10 LPG marketing companies. You know, we have a lot
that have come on board. These are not companies that are recently licensed by the authority.
Not at all. You can verify on your own and check. You can. You see, if I tell you here, you may think that I'm just. So maybe independently, you can come and verify and know these companies whether they've been in existence already or. But you should understand that, like I was saying, it's LPG marketing companies who do this. So when it comes to engagement, we've had several engagements with the LPG marketing companies. I think, obviously, there will always be some maybe different positions on issues.
But Abbas, just to come in, this is not just a different position. There are issues about their investment, there are issues about personnel, there are issues about their fit. People have invested millions of dollars into their business. What this policy is going to do to them is just to wipe those things away. And this is not just about I want a T to be tweaked in the policy. These are genuine concerns that they do have about this policy.
So I think that's another misconception we need to correct. If you remember, from the onset of this policy, how the policy was originally designed to operate, it was designed such that the LPG MCs, their current retail filling stations, were going to be converted into what we call the auto gas stations. So those stations were going to.
And what happened to the existing infrastructure that they have?
I'm explaining where we've gotten to. That's where we came from. We've gotten somewhere. So I'll take you through where we've come from to where we are now. So the original plan was for them to become auto gas stations, so that for domestic gas, they would have come from only the cylinder exchange points, which would be operated by these LPGMs. But obviously, they expressed their concerns about that and how that is going to affect their businesses. So if you remember, there was a time when there was a discussion that then let's give them about 10 years to operate the current model so that they can recoup their investment and then they can switch to auto gas and do cylinder exchange from only the cylinder exchange point. But even that, we progressed from that. And now the position is that there's no need to even give them any 10 years or 5 years or whatever. I think they came back and said they wanted more. I think we were saying 5 years, they wanted 10 years. And we said there's no need to even talk about years. Operate your regular filling stations as you've always operated. And then the cylinder exchange point will also operate side by side. As a businessman, I think as you see the commercial sense in having exchange points against establishing more refill outlets, then you can operate that. Let me mention that, you see, if you look at the consumption of LPG in Ghana, let me talk to you from what we have from January to July, the numbers for January to July. LPG, about 52 million kilograms was consumed in Greater Accra, has been consumed in Greater Accra from January to July. The next region is Ashanti, which consumes about 26 million kilograms. So you can see that Accra alone does a double of what Kumasi does. And then the third region is Brong-Ahafo, which has about 23 million. Then we have the Volta in the fourth position, which does about 22 million. So you can see that if you take the other regions, if you take, for example, the Upper East region, which does only 5 million kilograms, the idea of CRM is to make it more accessible. And the reason why you see that the LPG stations are concentrated in the urban areas, particularly Accra and Kumasi, is because it's very expensive, like they've said, to establish LPG refilling plants. So upon all the attempt to get them to go to the rural areas to increase access to people, it is not happening. The CRM rather gives them the opportunity to still maintain what they have today and operate them as they are operating today. So that if a consumer, you want to still feel like you want to take your own cylinder to the refilling plant, they've been allowed to do that. So nobody's stopping them. So they talk about losing jobs and their assets going away. It's not happening. They are operating and that nobody's preventing them from doing that. Now they are being given the opportunity to establish exchange points in these rural areas where ideally they wouldn't have gone. They haven't gone over the years because it's expensive. And if they look at the volumes that they will sell there, it doesn't make sense to go and put up that much money in those areas. So now CRM gives them the opportunity to establish exchange points. And exchange points are cheaper to construct because all you need is a land well paved, have a cage there, and then the LPG will be delivered to you there to sell to consumers. So they are being given an opportunity to expand their business to areas where ideally they wouldn't have gone to. So the CRM is just to increase access. So the talk about investment and losing jobs, we've moved away from them long ago. Nobody is preventing them from operating their
this has still not encouraged them to come on board to fully embrace this program with respect to all their members. So there's still some kind of deadlock.
Well, like I said, some have come on board, and as a regulator, I will not just ignore them and say...
Are you willing to engage them further to bring them on board with respect to all the concerns that they've raised for it to be addressed, so that they will actually embrace this policy and program going forward?
Oh, yes.
Have you shown that as the position signal that's appealing to them for them to come on board? Because it appears that the position from the authority is not encouraging them. That's why they've taken those entrenched positions.
It's unfortunate that's how it's seen, but if you ask anyone, the MP has not engaged any set of players as much as we've engaged the LPGMs when it comes to CRM. There was a point when we were meeting them every 2 weeks, and there's so much that has changed about the CRM because of the feedback they've given us. But as a regulator, of course, we are not going to ignore the engagement. We are going to continue with the engagement. In fact, there was supposed to be a meeting at the Ministry of Energy this past Monday, but it was rescheduled. So definitely engagement will continue to go on. Like I said, CRM will not be...
Are you committed to bringing them on board? Because they have taken some entrenched position that some are even worried about the impact of the current supply of product onto the market, and where they are even boycotting some bigger distribution firms with respect to this product.
So you see, like I said, CRM will be implemented by them, and we need them to implement CRM. So of course the engagement will go on, but it doesn't mean that anyone, we license them. They are our licensees. They come and renew their license every year. So of course we will need to get them to understand that this is to their advantage, and it's something we'll continue. So the discussions will continue until we get them to come on board. So CRM, as I've explained, you can see that it is not disadvantaging them. Because I don't see how... According
to you, because even here their case, they seem to have a very genuine case.
I think I've explained to you, so you have to be the judge here, whether what I've explained really is a disadvantage to them or not. You're the judge.
So you're optimistic that based on what you've done, they'll fully come on board?
Yes. I think they raise concerns, like I've said. There have been several meetings. Now the sector minister has invited us to a meeting to discuss it further. So the discussions will continue till we all come to a middle ground.
What is the authority doing about quality of product? And when people drive, it is still a major concern. These are service stations that you have given them license to operate. They're supposed to be, help me some education about even the fuel marking and all those things and blah, blah, blah. That is supposed to ensure, but it is still a major challenge here. What is the authority doing about this when people drive to service stations and they are still having issues with the quality of product being sold to them?
So I think as a consumer, you always be worried about the quality, or you be concerned about the quality. Of course, this is a product that if you consume the bad quality, it will affect your engine and your investment would have gone away. So it is natural that consumers will always be concerned about the quality. But the question is, have we had quality issues recently? And you've not had any head concerns because MPA...
Based on complaints that has come to your end. But does it mean that there's people still don't have problems?
So I was coming to what we do. So
all right.
Because it will always be a concern. That's why we have systems in place to ensure that the quality is always intact. I think you mentioned the fuel marking program, for example. This started years ago. And this is just to ensure that the product, once it's leaving the depot, the purity is preserved. So when it gets to the filling station, you are buying the same quality that will left the depot for someone not to adulterate. So this is a program that continuously we do. Our officers go to the field every month in different times within the month across the regions. They take samples and test. So this helps us to ensure that the quality is preserved. So for the quality of the petroleum product, even before the product leaves the depot, it will meet the quality standard before it's even allowed to discharge in tank. When a vessel arrives in Ghana to discharge petroleum products, the process is that a sample is taken, we test it to make sure it has met the standard that has been set by the Ghana Standards Authority. If it passes before it's allowed to discharge in tank, and then from there, the petroleum product marking program happens. So this is something that has been ongoing, and I'm not sure you have heard a mass concern about petroleum products. Every now and then, someone will raise concern. I think I've seen videos of people raising some...
Both on social media, and I think...
And some of them, interestingly, I saw some recently, and some of them were very old videos, but it doesn't mean that people will not have concerns about quality. But what we encourage people to do is that immediately you have any concern about quality, report to the authority immediately so we can look into it. I think you will not expect that there will never be a time when someone will not complain about quality, but when it becomes mass, then there's a problem. So we are there to ensure that when people have these concerns, we address them.
What are the remedies in place, one for the consumer, and also the necessary actions that should be taken against that marketing company in question?
So as a marketing company, there are protocols you have to observe at your filling station. So for example, if you are supposed to keep the underground storage tank in a certain manner and you don't keep it well and water passes into it and it causes someone's car to be damaged, and we come and we do the investigation and we realize that it was your negligence that led to that. We have systems that put in place that that marketer, for example, will have to compensate the consumer, and these have happened several times. So there are protocols, but our officers, when they go on the field, these are some of the things they check. And I would say that this is why you don't see a mass concern about consumers complaining that this station is causing damage. You will not see that. Once in a while, some of these things may happen. You get it? So the fact that you don't see it on a mass scale, consumers all over the place complain about these things, means that the regulator is doing his job.
I see. I come back to the structures in place, because we've had instances where people have had these challenges that appears that they had not received the right level of compensation. I don't know whether it's come to your end. You
know, sometimes when these issues come up, consumers sometimes have a different position. Some of these issues have actually ended up in court. So when it comes to MP, for example, we have a committee that addresses these issues. So between the complainant and the marketing company, the MP on its own, through its committee, will try to resolve it. And then compensation will be made. Where sometimes either the consumer or the marketer do not agree with the resolution or what we have come to at the committee level. Some of them take it to court, and then the court will determine what kind of compensation should be given to them.
But don't you think that more should be done in terms of the on-ground search, the on-ground inspections and all the rest, to kind of sense of confidence in the space?
You see, like I told you, the reason why I don't see all over the place filling station people's cars being damaged is because of that. So you see, you cannot have a system where nothing happens ever. But what you have to ask yourself is, how often does it happen? So if it's happening often and everywhere, then there's a problem. But the fact that maybe once in a while something happened, you know, we have over 4,000 stations in Ghana. So to say that nothing at all will ever happen will be deceiving ourselves. But if we are not seeing this happening all over the place, then it means that our inspections are working. So for example, of course we can go do our inspections. The station would have met all the requirements today. But you leave there, maybe tomorrow something may happen there that will cause someone's engine to get damaged. Those issues are not things that you can see may never happen. So when they happen, like you said, what systems do you have in place to address them? But our work is to regularly go there. Every month we are on the ground going across all the stations.
Have you taken those tough actions against these OMCs to send that signal to the rest? Because, again, there's an element of dealing with members who often you had this challenge. And again, you might classify that video as old one, but these were even well-established oil marketing firms that were having some of these challenges. Have you been able to take action against these firms? And it appears that we still don't have a lot when it comes to name and shame from the authority if it's established.
I think the authority has recently actually done naming and shaming when it comes to these issues. And let me say that I'm not sure we can say that there's a particular marketing company that has been having such issues. They happen every now and then across different stations, stations of different oil marketing companies. So to say that the regulator is not taking action on them and therefore you can see a particular company doing that may be a bit erroneous. but we don't have a particular company or a particular group of companies who these issues occur. So our monitoring work is what ensures, and the actions we take when these things happen is what ensures that we don't have these issues all over the place.
I know this as part of research, it might come to your end. We've seen a lot of development in the pricing space. Is the consumer more concerned about the quality of the product or the price? Because some OMCs have gone the route of pricing, and they've benefited from improved market share, whilst others outside also saying that, for me, it's about the quality of the product. I don't care about the price. As a regulator, what report comes to you when it comes to moving products, consumption of these products, and demand for products?
So I'm sure you are talking about some of the OMCs who use pricing as a competitive.
And they've grown from nowhere to a major player now.
So I think when we did price regulation, we introduced price regulation in 2015. One of the things we said was that price regulation was going to introduce a lot of competition on the market. And price competition is definitely one of them because consumers are very sensitive to price. So when price regulation occurs, prior to what happened before price regulation, where we set the same margin for all oil marketing companies, what you expect companies to do is now to look at their operations and to see where they can reduce their inefficiencies, reduce their losses, and then be more efficient in pricing. So if a company is able to do that, reduce their operational costs, reduce their losses, and is able to do low margins, then they can offer a better price. But to assure the consumer, the fact that a company's price is low does not mean that they have poor quality products in the market. Like I explained to you, the systems we have in place ensures that every product that is leaving the depot, or first of all, enters the country and is leaving the depot to a retail outlet has met the quality standard. So the fact that a company's price is low is not because it is selling low quality products. For consumers to know, OMCs generally don't have dedicated storage tanks for them. They all load, most of them load from the same biodex, from the same tanks, and then maybe the difference may be the additives they add to improve. But in terms of the basic standard of the petroleum product, all oil marketing companies sell the
I remember some time ago, a major person who used to be a CEO of the National Petroleum Authority told me something that we don't sell leaded fuel on the market. So if anybody, I hope I got a technical thing right here. Either leaded or something unleaded. I hope I got it right.
Actually, our petrol is unleaded.
Yeah. So then if any OMC comes to you and tells them, as for us, we don't have any leaded fuel in this, and therefore we are pricing at this price. So shame that OMC.
Actually,
I mean, what have you done for me?
I'm not sure any company has made a marketing and saying they sell unleaded fuel. Because we're not allowed that.
But I'm saying that so that the fact that every product you see from the market is most of the time coming from one main source.
Yeah, so I mentioned the difference
that when it comes to the marketing, some OMCs are positioning themselves that, oh, we have a better product. We have this, and they use the global brand to ride on that.
That's what I was talking about. So, one of the marketing tools from oil marketing companies is also, apart from the basic petroleum product, the basic petrol, which has met the national standard, is to add additives. Additives help improve the performance of the fuel. So you could have marketing companies who introduce additives to either reduce your consumption or improve the performance of the engine. So what happens is that all these additives will definitely come, before you even add an additive to your basic regular petrol, for example, you have to go to the Standards Authority, test it to prove that that additive does what you say it is doing. When it is proven, then you are allowed to add that additive. On that score, the company can be allowed to do marketing to say that I have added this additive to my fuel and therefore it improves the performance because it has been tested by the Ghana Standards Authority and it's been confirmed. Aside that, when it comes to petrol, we have two grades of petrol. We have the regular petrol, which is the minimum research octane number of 91. And then we have the premium grade petrol, which is supposed to have a minimum run, that's research octane number of 95. So for petrol, you can have the premium.
Why are you allowing? I mean, petrol is petrol from the regulators.
Petrol is petrol, but there are certain cars.
Because then it's coming at a. Sorry, yeah.
There are certain cars that require a higher grade of petrol, and therefore for such cars,
doesn't every car prefer higher?
No, so the car I drive doesn't require Euro 95. It requires regular petrol, Euro 91. So I don't buy Euro 95. So I buy the regular petrol.
I'm raising this argument because of the cost element.
Exactly. So if you want a premium grade petrol, so you realize that it's only petrol where we have. If the same company is selling petrol and it has two grades, RON 95 and RON 91, then that company will have a higher price for the RON 95 because that's a premium grade and that they pay higher for to get. Because the premium grade, like I said, is for certain specific types of cars. These cars, their engines require a higher grade of petrol. In some countries, we have even 3 different grades on the market. In Ghana, we have 2 grades. So we have the RON 95. If you know your cars very well, your car requires that grade, you purchase that grade. There are certain cars, if they use that are manufactured that way, if they drop down and use the RON 91, their engines will get damaged. So they always buy the RON 95. But if you know your car well, you know your car doesn't require RON 95, you don't buy RON 95. You buy the regular, which is RON 91. That's what I buy.
And therefore, do we have to forget about, does this whole argument still work that indeed there are different grades of fuel? And therefore, come to my service station and you get that.
That's what I explained. So the only advert you can make to say my grade is different is if you have added an additive to your fuel. Then you have to mention what additive you're adding to the regular petrol. So you can say I have premium grade and I have regular grade. But if you're adding an additive to that regular petrol or regular diesel to improve its performance, then you can advertise that.
You introduced the price floor because there were concerns about how most of these oil marketing companies were pricing and whether it has impact on the viability of the firm and all the rest. There were concerns about it. I know we started in this studio and raised a sort of concerns about that. Few months after its introduction, are you satisfied with it?
So we are satisfied with it to some extent.
Yeah.
So I think after its introduction, we introduced it in April.
Yeah.
And we've operated it until now. So there have been different lessons we've learned from it. When you look at the OMC side, the OMC trading is different and it's quite straightforward. So for the OMC side, it's worked well. What we have focused on is enforcing it because you always have certain retail stations who may not comply to what their oil marketing companies have asked them to sell at. So what we've been doing is once they don't comply, then we take action on them. Our guidelines indicate what kind of actions we take so that they can also comply because the purpose of this is to ensure the sustainability of the industry. On the BDC side, there have been some challenges with it. And the challenges have emanated from the fact that after implementing it from a while, we realized that the way the BDC trade business is, BDCs are exposed to serious volatility on the world market. Yeah. They are also highly exposed to exchange rate volatility, unlike the OMCs. So BDCs have had a challenge where sometimes we set a price floor, but the way the market is moving, they may have to sell the product below the price floor. Otherwise, they make huge losses. We have had different positions on that. We've had discussions, but we've come to the agreement that let's suspend it and look at a better way of coming up with something that protects the sustainability of the BDC side. So effective this 1st October, we suspended the setting of price floor for the BDC side, that's the ex-refining price floor. But for the OMC side, it's working well, and the OMC, Association of Oil Marketing Companies, with their players have come out to support that. So it's working well at the OMC side.
But what happened to the BDC? So now, free for all?
No, so now, if they can sell at any price, whilst we discuss what better way to get, get the sustainable way of protecting them. So the BDC side has been suspended, but for OMC side, but it doesn't mean that the formula has changed because the formula still takes into consideration certain factors to set it. Just that preventing the company from setting below a certain price when they are faced with market volatility was affecting them. So in your quest to try and protect their sustainability, they've explained that this sometimes makes them make huge losses. And so as a regulator, you have to listen to this is what's done for the industry.
Doesn't it raise concerns about the whole policy itself and the concerns about more engagement before the full takeoff? Because now
it will interest you to know.
It affects the whole chain.
It will interest you to know.
Or if I can use the expression, the value chain, because now it's working. It's been implemented for the OMCs who actually draw product from the BDCs, but it's been suspended for the BDCs.
So it will interest you to know that even the call for us to have such a price floor came from the BDCs. But like you say, you always have to assess what you do. So doing it to sustain their business, they realize that there are other aspects of it which we may not have considered before we did it. So I don't think the BDCs oppose the price floor. They never oppose the price floor because they called for it. And but
I remember that the CEO was here with us on Zoom, and he was raising concern about the FX.
Exactly. So what they called for,
and that was causing or was affecting.
What they called for was the fact that we didn't add the international oil trading marketing companies premium, and the fact that the FX rate we were using was a lower rate. So when we got back, what we did was, when we started, what we were using was a BOG auction rate, the auction rates that the BOG does. Yeah. You know, that rate is lower than the market rate. Yeah. So after the engagement with them, we revised that formula and used the 1 month forward rate instead of an auction rate because the auction does not give them 100% of their exchange rate. The other thing that they asked for, which we didn't do, was the fact that we should add the International Oil Marketing Trading Company premium and also the operating margin of the buy deck. The reason why we didn't allow this was that when you do this, then now you are regulating the price. Also, we are in a deregulated environment where International Oil Trading Marketing Company premiums are negotiated. So BDCA may get $50, BDCB may get $20, another may get $0 in addition to the world market price. Exchange rate in general, they all don't use the same exchange rate. Operating margins, because it's deregulated, they also determine their own operating margin. So our position was that no matter what margin you put there, will be debatable. Because if you are efficient and you're able to negotiate or reduce your cost of operation, and you can use, let's say, a premium of $10, and we go and set that premium in the formula at 30, then we are preventing you from giving better prices to consumers. So we said that was going to be $0 because in the formula, you now determine what your own premium is, and you determine what the marketer, the premium from the world market, your supplier is, and you put it in the formula. So the formula leaves out those two elements because it's deregulated. But like I said, it is not because of that. Because if you have even considered that, what we were asking for, it means our price floor would have been higher than what we were publishing, which would have still been a challenge for them.
But in one breath, you are trying to promote a deregulated price system. In another breath, you are having a price floor. In another breath, you are having a band. Aren't you getting back to the same regulation of prices that you were trying to avoid because this is a free market?
So I think it's important to recognize that, first of all, we don't set bands. If we set a band, it means we are setting a ceiling as well.
Yeah.
So what we do...
Didn't you have a time where people were allowed to operate within...
No, we've never, since we did price regulation, we've never done that. In fact, when we did price regulation, we just give them the template, they set their own prices. What we came to do recently, based on the call from industry, was a price floor, not a price ceiling. So if we had done a ceiling too, then there was a band. So we only set a price floor, which is just this year. The regulation came in 2015.
Yeah.
So it's almost 9 years since we did price. We've never come into tamper with the pricing of the companies. So like I said, this came as a call from the industry to address price undercutting. They came with both OMCs and BDCs.
And you think that this policy has resolved that?
So on the OMC side, it has resolved. You can speak to, sometimes I want you to also speak to the OMCs on your own and hear from them. So the OMCs, this has addressed the price undercutting at the OMC level. You see, this is an industry where it's a commodity that is benchmarked, that has a benchmark price. And there are costs that apply to all. So when you see prices on the market below a certain level, as a regulator, you should even be concerned. What is making people sell at these prices?
Why should you be worried? If that person has
because,
an effective system built
if it's effective,
cut down on their cost of operations.
So you see, the formula, like I said,
shouldn't you be excited?
The formula, like I said, leaves out what you have control over as an oil marketing company, and that's your margin. So if you are effective, it means that if you would have charged a margin of, let's say, 10 pesos, if, let's say, the market average margin is 10 pesos per liter, and you are effective, you do lower than that. But there's nobody who operates without a cost. So it will even be weird to see a company selling at zero cost. Then how do you take care of your operational cost? So what we say here is that the formula excludes all those costs that you have control over. And that's why we allow you in the deregulated market to say that from zero to wherever, my margin, so one company may have a margin of 10, another company may have a margin of 50, another may have a margin of 30. And that is what the deregulation allows. So we don't control that. It is still, like, if you check the formula for the price floor, you see that that is left zero. And if you see the publication we make, we always state that the price floor has excluded those numbers, those things because of the deregulated nature of the market. But the pricing formula has certain fixed costs. If you take, for example, the OMC price formula, you see that there are taxes and there are levies and there are margins there. No OMC will sell and not pay taxes back to government. They have to pay those taxes back to government. So you sell a liter of petrol, let's say currently the total taxes and levies that an OMC has to pay back is 3 cedis 27 pesos. That 3 cedis 27 pesos has to go.
Abbas, are you aware that some of the companies are still selling below the price floor?
Like I mentioned,
you are aware.
Enforcement is ongoing, and so
what is going to happen to them? That is what I'm actually picking up from
George,
a player right
George,
now.
Let me tell
I'm not going to mention that
George,
player.
let me tell you.
He tells me that George, there are companies that are selling below the price floor.
There are regulations.
And are you enforcing regulations?
Let me answer your question.
Okay, all right.
There are regulations, and I'm not sure there's anywhere in this world where you don't find people flouting regulations. There will always be some people who flout regulations.
The level of it being
But when we have over 4,000 retail outlets in Ghana, you can check how many of them retail outlets flout the regulation. There are not many, but we don't leave them. There are sanctions that we apply to them. So if you come and check, some of these things we cannot put them out here. But if you come and check, you see.
Doesn't it bring the name and shame?
No, but it doesn't mean.
You understand?
George, we have the police in Ghana, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
Is there crime in Ghana or not?
There is crime.
Yes, we have a regulator for the petroleum downstream industry, and we have a regulation. So there will always be some people who will flout the regulation. But if we sit unconcerned, then you can take us on. But we have sanctioned these people, we deactivate them, we issue the penalty as per the guidelines. So those are being done. So the fact that there are regulations and the police is in place to prevent that doesn't mean that there will never be. So let's look at the level of the...
So what has happened to these
let's look at the
companies? Have
level.
You dealt with them?
Yeah, we deal with them regularly. And
have they resulted in even withdrawing their license, or the law allows you?
We haven't gotten to withdrawing the license. The guidelines state what happens to you if you flout the regulation. And we are applying that. Until we get to the point where we say withdraw license, we haven't gotten there. So the sanctions that have to be applied, we apply it. But then the point is, like we said, how many retail outlets out of the over 4,000 are flouting it? It's just a few. Every now and then it's just a few. Because you see, the price floor also is not static. It changes every 2 weeks. So every now and then you have one retail outlet here and there who are not complying, but that's why we do price monitoring. And once we find them out, we sanction them. So as we speak, we are thinking of how to even, for those companies, stations that we see who are not flouting. So what happens is that when you flout that regulation, there's a penalty you pay, but we don't want to dwell on monetary penalty. We also deactivate you in the ERDMS for you not to be able to load to the station. We are looking at how to even tighten that regulation so that to prevent those people who, so if let's say your company, you have let's say 200 stations in Ghana, and even one of your stations is not compliant, then you as an OMC, you are not doing your job well. So we are looking at coming to the level of the OMC and sanction the OMC and not the retail outlets.
Sanction, fine, or deactivating them?
So yes, maybe
stopping
possibly
them from loading?
So that you can get all your retail outlets to comply. Because what happens is what we've observed actually is that you may have some retail outlets operating under you who are dealer-owned.
Yeah.
Sometimes a dealer somewhere far away from your operational headquarters is not complying. So we are looking at how to ensure we do this without also affecting the general, because if it's one station in my company out of about 100 stations who is doing that, then should the entire company suffer. But the responsibility is on you, the company, to ensure your retail outlets comply. So we are looking at how
effective does the authority see the name and shame as a regulatory sanction to also force some of these oil marketing companies? Because again, I stand to be educated, but I feel that NPA is quite low in that area. For instance, those who are not pricing right with the floor, what stopped the NPA from announcing companies?
Yeah, you may use name and shame,
which could
but as a consumer,
force people
George,
not to.
As a
I won't
consumer,
mention the company
so
because of legal reasons.
But
I drove at a service station here in Accra, and I saw the price, and I said, nah.
But George, you see,
nah.
George, you see, first of all, you're a consumer here, you say you want a low price.
I know. But because of the education that I received from the industry, I then raised the red flag when I saw the price. And this company said, it's right here in Accra.
So first of all, the price floor...
So are you going to do the name and shame bit?
No, so the name and shame, you see, let's not make it look like MP has never done name and shame. I think last year or so, we did name and shame for certain category of default.
But you do it regularly? You don't?
So for this one in particular, name and shame is not part of the guideline. But you see, let me say something.
Consider that?
These guidelines were not done by just MPA. But the question is, when it comes to an issue like price floor, will name and shame do the trick? It may not do, because you may even now be advertising who has a low price from who you can buy from them. So you may say name and shame, but name and shame when it comes to price floor will not work. Because people will now go to that company who is not complying and selling at that low price. That's why I said that we are looking at other ways of strengthening the sanction so that it can bite.
And you think that is the better option as well?
No, you see, if the company does not feel the penalty, then they will continue to flout the regulation. But the good thing is that, like I said, we don't have a lot of, it's a few. And there's no way you ever have a system where nobody is flouting. But when they flout, what do we do to them? And that's what we have to focus on.
Economic regulation and planning. Again, going back to the impact of some of these regulations on the players and the cascading effect. Again, based on an industry concern, there are some who are also worried about this whole deregulation program and how that is even impacting some of these oil marketing companies meeting their obligations to the banks. And I'll come back to the levies and all those things. Do you get time to look at some of these things and how that is impacting on these OMCs, the margin issues and all the rest, and the viability of the industry as well, based on a policy action? So
the price regulation policy was reviewed 2 years ago. In fact, it was reviewed with a committee was set up with representation from all the players in the industry. Even some of the think tanks were invited to make inputs. One of the outcomes of that assessment is this price floor thing. Because you see, the issue about price undercutting was the number one issue. In a deregulated market, we all know that there are costs to doing the business. And then when you see people selling at a price that doesn't make sense, then there's a cost for concern. And that's how come one of the outcomes is to come up with a price floor that we can see in a deregulated market. When it comes to economics, okay, there are those who are of the school of thought that the government should not intervene at all.
Yeah.
And there are those who are of the school of
free
thought
market.
That, yes, because it's a free market. But then evidence has shown that where there is no eye on the free market, it always collapses. It has.
There should be a correction.
Always the government's hand must be in there.
Inefficiency.
Yes, but our hands being in there shouldn't prevent the market from being efficient. So what we do as a regulator is to ensure that we are there, we have oversight of the industry, and we have to come in and then whip people into line. So it's a deregulated market, but like I said, we left it without having any price floor, no price ceiling, nothing. And concerns about price undercutting came up. And that's how come this price floor has come up. But our work is to ensure that once we've come up with a solution, we have to enforce it so that it is serving the purpose for which it has been served.
I know you want to allow the market forces to work. But again, when sometimes it's so clear that based on industry data, based on all those established variables that you use in influencing pricing and all the rest, prices are supposed to go down, but the OMCs are not doing that. From the regulator's perspective, what is the intervention here to correct that market action that is wrong? A typical example, again, I stand educated as in what should have happened the first pricing window. And again, unless the modeling has changed, where we know that previous data over the last 2 weeks should influence the first week. And again, that's why I said that unless things
so,
have
yeah,
changed,
of course, I'm here to correct that.
The data suggested that there should have been at least price being stable or a marginal reduction.
So, George,
now you hear an OMC come and say, oh, because of what is happening on the international market now, it's going up. What is happening on the international market now was not a base for that review for that first week in this month.
George, I don't know if you've monitored the market for the past 2 months. Did you notice that the prices fell for 4 consecutive windows?
Yeah.
Did you notice that?
Yeah.
So if you say that OMs don't reduce their price when the market has to fall, then that's an error.
In some instances.
No, it has happened when it
not
has to.
The consistently
No, so you see,
prices.
so the question is, you have a perception of where it should be. So the question is, where should it be? So if I ask you right now, what should be the price of petrol, what will you say?
I think that there should be, at worst, prices should have been kept unchanged.
No, what should be the price? What should be the
I can't say because
you see, that's the thing. That's why I asked this question, because it's a market that has different
prices. But they are
prices.
going up. The prices are going up.
So it is going up in this window. I don't know if you checked.
Yeah.
No, did you check the market indices for this window? If you compare the world market, if you compare the world market price for this window, first window of October to what was used for second window of September, the world market price of petrol has gone up. The world market price of diesel inched up a little, but because of FX, it also has to go up. But our projection, petrol and diesel price should have gone up this window, and that's what we are seeing. That's why I asked you whether you've monitored the market for the past 2 months. The past 2 months, when prices should have gone down, they went down. So to say that prices don't go down where they should go down, mind you, we have a very competitive industry. And everybody, that's how come even OMCs, BDCs sometimes sell below the price floor we set. That's how come sometimes people are even concerned that some OMCs are selling below what the price should be. So when you say prices are not going down where they should go down, so the thing is that it's a very subjective argument. Because that's why I asked you what should be the price. You couldn't tell what the price should be.
No, because I can't.
Exactly. So don't say that.
I'm just saying that.
I'm
expecting that prices should be kept.
No, that cannot happen when.
I'm using a variable.
That cannot happen when the world market price has gone up, when the exchange rate has depreciated. That will not happen. But when the world market price fell, when the world market,
because if you again look at that, so I'm saying that. Whether the modeling has been reviewed or not, because
no, you see, it is working.
What is the margin of depreciation?
It is working. So
if you look at even
unless someone can
or you extrapolate to go look at outlook.
Unless someone can come out and say that per the price I am seeing by this oil marketing company, the price is overpriced, or it should have gone down by this number and it didn't. These arguments sometimes they are just said arbitrarily. Because we have several marketing companies with different prices. And so in a price, as a price sensitive, how do you call it, consumer, if you go to this oil marketing company and think their price is not okay for you, our work is to make sure the quality of the product by all oil marketing companies is correct. So that when you go, you are buying from the one with the low price, the quality is good, the one with the high price, the quality, because mind you, these oil marketing companies have different operational costs, different overheads, and all that. So their margins vary, and so their
but
price
at least
will
you
vary.
can rate them in the top 5 and argue that
we leave that to you. We leave that to you, the consumer. So
that if you've been able to inch into the top 5, then we will argue that
how do you determine who the top 5 is?
Oh, but Abbas, you know the top
But we publish,
five.
no, we publish.
You know the top 5 oil marketing
MPA as a regulator cannot come out and say that these are the top 5 companies to go to.
Based on your data that we observe, these are the top 5 oil marketing companies.
We publish data on sales, that's market share.
Yeah.
Market share, we publish that, and it's publicly available on our website. So on your own, you can go out and check that what we publish and say that.
Abbas, I want you to hold on. This is PM Express Business Edition as we engage the Director of Economic Regulation and Plan at the National Petroleum Authority as we look at regulating the sector and whether the regulator is doing its job by ensuring that the consumer are protected as we still deal more on the pricing issue and the outlook for the sector. This is PM Express Business Edition. Right back after this break. Welcome back to PM Express Business Edition as we look at regulating the petroleum sector and whether the regulator is doing the right thing or not. And as a consumer, are you more confident now than ever before that when you drive to that service station, you are assured of that quality fuel because of what the National Petroleum Authority have told you in terms of what they are doing to ensure that the quality out there is good for everyone. So still back on the pricing issue, the outlook is not looking good. And I don't think that's regulator, we are just regulating, it's a free market. So when the price should even get to 100 cedis a gallon, we don't care. You should be worried because the indices are not the kind of warning for everyone.
So George, you know the regulator, first of all, MPA's job is to ensure that there's product availability at all times. And sometimes, we sometimes take for granted the fact that we have products available at all times. When we don't have the product available, what will happen? We'll all be queuing up, roaming all over the place, looking for the product. But how will the product be available? If the product is not available and if people are not getting the actual, recouping their cost of making the product available, then there will be shortages. So regulator, our work, first of all, is to make sure that the product is available. And in doing so, ensure that it is priced fairly. If I say fairly, if you are an investor and you invest in bringing products onto the market, you should be able to recoup your investment. So, for example, you go to the market today, world market today to bring in products, or you go to a refinery to buy products, and the price is $500 per metric ton. If tomorrow it has jumped to $1,000 per metric ton, and the regulator says don't pass that cost on, then as a businessman, you will not bring the product to the market. If you are buying FX today at, let's say, 15, and the FX goes to 16.5, and therefore the price has to go up, the regulator cannot say don't increase the price. So, as a regulator, our work is to ensure that the product is first available and that the investor is pricing fairly per the pricing formula. So then the question comes, then we look at what the formula, the question you've asked, what are the indices in the formula that are leading price to go up all over the world? If world market prices go up, it affects everyone. If the economy's exchange rate, especially for an importer, changes, it affects the price. So we are not shielded from such volatility on the world market. So this is Iran, Lebanon issue, it will affect everyone. You can Google and search.
It has jumped from $71 on, this is even just crude, Monday to about, when I came on before, I think $78 a barrel.
Remember what happened in 2022 when Russia attacked Ukraine? Yeah. We all felt it. So you see, we will not be shielded from that. So if the price has jumped and you have to pay more to import the product for consumers to get it, how can the regulator prevent the company who has gone to bring it in at a higher price from passing on to the consumer?
I get that your hands are up in
so
there.
The point is that when we look at the formula and what is causing the prices to change, if the regulator had the control over that, then you could have asked the regulator, what can you do? So our work as a regulator is to ensure that if the product is being priced, it is being priced according to the formula. And that's why on a daily basis, we publish what we call the daily price indicators. Yeah. And this helps the consumer to see where the world market prices, which is the main cause, and also the exchange rate, which are the two main factors that make our prices go up or down. Because if you look at the price formula, the other components are the taxes and the levies, which have not changed since 2021. They have been the same up to today. Even
the margins have been reviewed, your levies have reviewed about.
So some margins have
been when it was expected that when...
I deliberately mentioned taxes and levies first.
All right. But the margins and levies have gone up.
I'll come to margins as a separate issue. Most of these margins are operational costs. Let's take, for example, UPPF margin. The UPPF margin is what pays for the cost of transportation. So if the price of diesel, for example, has gone up, how do you expect the UPPF margin to remain the same? it will definitely go up. So margins, because they are operational cost, they will go up if the cost of operations go up. So we cannot expect the margins to be fixed when what they are paying for, the cost is going up. So if the tanker that moves the product from Accra to Kumasi has to pay more for fuel,
alone,
especially like the taxes.
There have been instances where when prices were even going down, everybody expected that, if nothing can be done, then MPA comes in and reviews a levy and reviews the margin.
No,
whether it's
MPA
coming
doesn't review levies. Let's correct.
Okay, fine. From the MPA, energy ministry or whatever.
In 2022, I don't know if you remember. Again, in 2022, MPA reduced margins because of the high rising prices. So MPA has made interventions, and also there have been times when we have called on government, and actually government gave us the approval to, for example.
And are you making that proposal to government? Because from what we are seeing right now,
George, we haven't gotten there. When we get there,
from 71 to 70,
this will not be the first time MPA.
From 71 to 77 or 78.
Let me make this point. MPA has, like I told you, on several occasions, made recommendations for certain aspects of taxes, if they can be reduced, to be reduced. We've done that several times.
And are you still doing that to the energy industry or government?
We monitor. What we are talking about is just 2 days ago, Israel attacking, and it has just happened 2 days ago.
But the outlook points to the fact that...
We monitor the price and we advise government accordingly. We have done this over the years.
So what advice are you giving to government based on what is happening right now?
I will not give you that answer here. I'm saying that we are monitoring the question. Market. We've always done this advice. So, you see, it is not you who tell us to advise government.
Our job. I know you know your job, but I'm saying that.
So as we have done, you see, if there was no record of us doing it before, then we could have said this.
And so you are doing that.
So we monitor, and when it is right, we advise government. So if we had never done it before, we could have said, you've never done it before, so do it. We do it all the time, and we don't wait for anyone to tell us to do it, because our work is also to monitor the market and advise accordingly. And that's why, like I told you, we on our own, always on a daily basis, publish what we call the daily price indicators, which tells you how the world market price is moving. We wouldn't be monitoring it if we wouldn't be publishing that and monitoring if there was no purpose for that. So our work as a regulator is to, if government can touch any tax or any levy, we advise government to do that. And government, like you know, it is up to government to take that decision, but we can only advise.
Firms like OPEC have argued that in instances where prices are going up on the international market, the platform is showing that prices are going up. The only thing we can do to cushion consumers is to review some of these margins and levies to cushion consumers.
George, the margins, like I've told you, are for operational purposes. So it is not just easy to say scrap or reduce a margin.
No scrap, I'm saying...
Even if you are reviewing it and it affects the cost of operation, then how does that operation go on? So, like I said, it's been done before. If it is possible, it will be done. But just to say do it just because you want us to do it, when it is not feasible, we cannot do it. So we always look at, you see, let's not make it look like, George, let's not make it look like the regulator is not concerned about the consumer. The regulator is very concerned about the consumer, and that's why we do all this work we do. Ultimately, the consumer is who we are looking at to make sure you get value for money. So those calls, if it is possible, it will be done.
Is it possible in these times when we've seen prices going up?
I've already answered that question.
No, I'm just to get some clarity.
We are monitoring the market, and that decision is not something I can just sit here and take that decision. There's a lot that has to be considered before you take such a decision. So to just say that it's possible or not possible, a lot of factors have to be looked at. You've mentioned fuel market, you've mentioned UPPF, you've mentioned, these are all different operations that run on cost. So to just sit here and say it is possible when I don't know what the details of those costs are, because these are run by different directorates. So without knowing all of that and knowing whether it is feasible or not, I cannot just sit here and say it's possible. We have to consider that and then look at it. And like I said, if it is possible and it has been done before, it will be done.
And we'll be looking to.
Even this year, early this year, the UPPF margin was reduced at some points. I don't know if you remember. So these things are not new. The MPA always does these things and reviews them as and when necessary. When
you engage some of the industry players, they point to an outlook where prices will be seeing a reverse of prices going up. As a regulator, do you get that same picture that...
Yeah, I think, like I said, the components of the price that change every now and then is the world market price and the exchange rate. Now, if you look at what's going on in the world market, and it is not only Ghana, everybody in the world is affected by these issues. When there is war in the Middle East and it affects supply of petroleum products, and petroleum products, like you said, is going up on the world market, everyone feels it. And you see, we publish these daily price indicators to give you an indication so that you can also know what to expect. That world market price, with price regulation, what happens is that whatever happens on the world market affects us here. So we are not shielded from those things, like I've said earlier. So at least you know that this is how the world market is going, this is what is likely to happen to us. So we cannot say that world market prices are going up everywhere in the world is happening, but in Ghana we will not be affected by it. We'll be affected by it. So that's the reality.
But I'm not expecting you to give me a yes or no, but I'm saying that even it has to be a board decision, engaging the energy ministry for them. And that's why I'm saying that if we look at all these things, do we get the indication that the authority would take the necessary steps to ensure that you minimize...
it is part of our work as a regulator, and we do this all the time. We don't sit unconcerned. We monitor, and that's why we monitor. We monitor, and if we advise, we have to advise, we advise. It is part of our regular day-to-day work as a regulator. So this is not something that we are now thinking about doing. We do that all the time.
There are some who are saying that there are a lot of oil marketing companies in this space. And maybe the time has come to cap or enforce your laws to the letter to gradually wipe some of these firms out. So what do you make of all these concerns, whether they are well informed or not?
To be an oil marketing company, there are requirements you have to meet to get that license. And these requirements also are public on our website. Once you meet the requirement, you are granted an oil marketing company license. So the concerns about the number, all these companies have made their license requirements, and Ghanaians who have made the requirements and apply and get the license, just like any other business.
Maybe that your requirements are too flexible that anybody, Georgia can wake up today and get a requirement and start opening a service station just down the road.
We've changed our requirements over the time. So there's a lot we do actually over the time, over the period, to make sure that these requirements are up to date. So obviously there's more we can do to make sure that the requirements become stringent. If we think there's an influx of marketing companies because the standard is too low, it's something that we have looked at. Actually, one of the things that came out of the price regulation policy review and the assessment we did 2 years ago was how to ensure that we raise the bar a little, because there are quite a number of oil marketing companies in the system. And I think even the past 2 years, a number of oil marketing company lines have been revoked because they've not met certain requirements. So that happens. But you also have new ones who come on board because they've met requirements. So that's something we look at. But I think we also have to get to the point where the industry on its own the system itself can sometimes also fish out these things. So some of these companies, for example, recently we've had discussion with the industry about coming out with credit ratings where if you don't meet certain credit risk, you will not even naturally be in the business. Because if I'm in a BDC and I have to sell to you and I go and check your credit rating and you are not doing well, I will not be willing to sell to you. Naturally, if companies are not complying with some of these things, the industry on its own can also...
On that credit rating program that is being pushed, I mean, when all of that things being equal, when are we hoping that it could be rolled out so that those who are credit worthy can be in the system to get actually,
so we are doing this thing with the Bank of Ghana and the credit bureaus. We had a meeting with the BDCs, I think 2 months ago. So we've not had that session with them. There's another engagement with the OMCs. Then it rolls out. So it's also rolling out on a voluntary basis. So for example, BDCs come on voluntarily, OMCs come on voluntarily. So what happens is that once you are in that system, if I'm a BDC and I'm very concerned about such risk, even the international oil marketing companies are interested in that. If I'm too much concerned about risk and being too exposed, I go to the credit rating and check your credit rating to see whether you are credit worthy. If you are, then I'll be willing to sell to you. So I think once we start this voluntarily, companies come on board and then it increases. So if it gets to a point where companies are not willing to sell to companies who are not there, and you have to meet certain requirements to even be there. So naturally, everybody will now try to start to improve their operations and how efficient they are to be able to meet certain requirements to be in business. So I think we'll get there, but I think once the engagement with the OMCs happens, we have made a lot of progress with this. We are doing it together as an industry. So I'm sure very early next year this will start. But voluntarily, companies have committed to doing it.
Again, the signaling effect about the bit that how quickly does the regulator move in when you realize that a Wiafe oil marketing company has flouted all the laws, he had the license, not living by the conditions of the license, that you move in to wipe this Wiafe OMC out. And the signal was sent to others that if you fail to live by the laws, you will lose your license.
So if you know the number of companies on a daily basis we suspend or cut from the yard, you'll be surprised.
And name and shame? No.
So like I said, it's not everything that you can use name and shame to address. So there's a place for name and shame. But a lot of these issues, we stop you from operating, we suspend your licenses, we do this all the time. And I think the recent revocations we've done, we've published them. Some of them are not revoking the company's license, but stopping the station from operating if the station is not meeting certain requirements. And these are done on a regular basis. So be it you not paying your margins or be it complying with certain regulations, we do that. And also when our teams go out on the field, there are certain infractions that when stations commit, on the spot, their stations are locked. So these are things that are done on the regular. And all this helps us to ensure that the industry is... You see, Ghana's petroleum downstream industry is doing very well. We have issues, and every industry has issues. But it doesn't mean that we are not doing very well.
Based on the comparison with other,
yeah, you see,
the
if you check the fact that,
others. So what are the benchmarks here that makes the regulator feel that?
Well, I'm not saying we are doing well comparing ourselves even to another country. We are doing well looking at their mandate of ensuring that the consumer has petroleum products at all times and also has quality petroleum products consumed.
But there should always be a benchmark here. That's what I'm
No, you see, sometimes you may be blowing your own horns because you are comparing yourself maybe Nigeria or Cote d'Ivoire or whatever. But as a consumer, as a regulator, and our mandate of ensuring you get petroleum products at all times and they meet the quality standard, it is happening. And we don't have Ghana having queues and all that. Even if you look at the price of petroleum products on the world market, which, yes, we all wish it would have been lower. But just go to globalpetrolprice.com, for example, and compare our price to our neighboring countries. You see that Ghana is not doing that bad. So we can always do better, but we are doing well.
There was a recent ranking that suggested that we are among the lowest here.
As of today, if you look at the price on the world, in West Africa, based on globalpetrolprice.com today, 3rd of October, you see Ghana is ranked, has one of the lowest prices in the sub-region. So price is something that has other factors. Availability, we always have petroleum products on our market. So on that score, we are doing very well.
The better about the system also correcting some of these inefficiencies as well. So the system itself will push out an OMC when they are not meeting the requirement. Is that system also in place where directly the system will lock you out because it would then don't take the NPA to move in and then take an action on you?
So if I understand you, this system here, for example, will be if an OMC is not complying, BDCs on their own will have a system. I think this is something that we always discuss with them as well. But you see, because of the competitive nature of the market, even on they themselves, you agree that these OMCs, maybe they owe this person, they haven't paid, and therefore don't sell to them. You see somebody selling to them because sometimes the industry is also too focused on market shares and not profitability. So people will just be interested in selling volumes, and just because they are operating, they are more or less, it's like a cycle where I will sell, the money will come, and then sometimes until the cycle stops, that's why we are concerned about these price undercutting issues. Sometimes until the cycle stops, you will not see that there's a huge hole that has been dug. So we have to ensure that the system is also efficient, and that's something we talk to that's why we work together with the Chamber of Bulk Oil Distributors, work with the Association of Oil Marketing Companies, and that's why I think this credit bureau system is also very good. So that if everybody is complying, then we can have the system itself fish out some of those things. But on our own as a regulator, the requirements as they are per the law, we'll continue to enforce them. But if a company meets requirements to be an OMC or a BDC, once they have made the requirement as per the law, they will have to be granted a license.
What is the status of the OMCs that are so hugely indebted to the National Petroleum? And that's just even the National Petroleum Authority. I've been spoken about other regulators as well. So what is the status of those debts and what has been done to recover those debts?
So we did something in 2023, early 2023. So in 2022, we kind of ring-fenced all that debt. And from 2023, we have a system where you will not even owe. If the time for payment is up and you've not paid, we suspend you immediately. So from January 2023 to date, all that has accrued from that time to now. Today, I checked with our finance team.
What's the level of the debts as you speak right now?
So a lot of that has been collected. And that's how come even some of the companies' licenses were revoked. So a lot of that debt has been collected. I mean, the previous one up to...
The 2 billion, the 3 billion? No?
I'm not sure about the figure, but I spoke to our finance team today before I came here to just verify that, because I knew it would come up. So a lot of that. But then what they've informed me about is that from 2023 to date, 99% of what is owed has been paid, because we don't allow accumulation of debt anymore. So in terms of margins that are supposed to be paid to NPA, it is working. The system we have in place now is working, because we will not allow you to even load for the next month to add up to what you owe the previous month.
Has the NPA aware of instances where a company is stopped from the system, moves under a different brand name, and is still operating the system? Has it come to your end?
Well, I've heard some of these things, but sometimes, like if you come and you apply for a license, you have your data in the system. So if the same company is applying or the same directors are applying for such a company, of course we will see that. So I can't confirm that people are doing that, even though I've also heard that.
Going back to the debt issue again, then one asks, what are the push factors here? Because if an OMC is within the system and they're even struggling to pay their obligation taxes and they are selling products, then it tells us that the market might not be that big.
You see, that's why I mentioned earlier that we are concerned about sustainability of the industry. You see, when people sell below certain price floors, coming back to the discussion about the price floor, when people sell below, let me say, when they sell below cost, because like I said, if you take petrol, for example, there are taxes, levies, and margins you have to pay as an OMC when you sell a liter of petrol. All the money in there, even aside that the taxes, the levies, and the margins, part of the money, in fact, about 70% of the money goes to the bulk, the BDC you bought from. Because you buy the product before taxes, levies, and margins are added, and you, the OMC, you add your margin. Sometimes the OMC margin is about 5% of the full price. So if OMCs are not selling at the right price and they are just interested in selling at a low price, any price at all, just to make market share, then they'll struggle to pay these margins. They'll struggle to pay these levies. So as a regulator, when you look at all of this, it helps to address some of these concerns as well. So now when you set a price floor, that ensures that companies can sell at a realistic price so they can pay the levies, the taxes, and the margins that they are supposed to pay. Then that helps to sanitize the industry. But
are you also worried about the fact that some of these firms are hugely indebted to the commercial banks as well? And again, it comes back again to the viability of the industry. Because then,
if we're not worried, we wouldn't have even attempted to implement the price floor. Because the price floor goes to address all of these issues. Because when you get people to sell at realistic prices, and they are not just undercutting themselves because they want to gain market share, then you see that it will flow that way. If you're able to pay everyone they are supposed to pay, and even if they want to give away their margins, they can do that. But at least be able to pay the BDC, because the BDC has to pay the bank, pay the state its levies and margins. And then if you want to be Father Christmas and be giving away your margin for free, like I said, no OMC operates without a cost. Even if you are so efficient, you still have a cost. So you cannot have a zero cost. And the price floor is zero cost. So we leave you, because it's a deregulated market, to put in what your cost as an OMC is. So if it is zero, then even that raises concerns. But it cannot be zero, because you have workers you have to pay, you have license fees.
So these your regulatory actions has worked to deal with that problem, because some of the banks have complained about
you agree
the level of exposure.
And price floor started just this April. And like I said, if you speak to the OMCs yourself, a majority of them will tell you that it has helped to sanitize the industry. And so all we hope to do is to improve it, especially where we have to make amendments to it. You see, every regulation, that is new, will not be perfect from the onset. It takes time, you fine-tune it, you make changes as and when. So that's what we seek to do, to improve it and then enforce it. Like I said, we are enforcing it. So like those who are not complying and all of that, how do we ensure that we make our sanctions biting so that we can get everybody to comply? Because the ultimate goal is to ensure that there's a sustainable industry. Like I said, if the industry or the players cannot go and purchase products to bring for us to consume, if the banks cannot finance them, then as a country we'll have a problem. Because we don't want a situation where there's no product on the market for us to consume. Our economy will grind to a halt.
I know this thing that's happening. I know you're a regulator, you don't care about it, but are you surprised with the movement that is happening within the industry and whatever approach that any player is adopting? I mean, it's like, well, as long as the players are abiding by the rules, we don't care.
So which movement are you referring to?
Like market share or volumes, where somebody has moved from number 10 and is moved to number 2 or number 1 because of the fact that
that is just evidence of a very competitive market. Because you can see these players, what they are doing to gain market share. They are either competing on price, or they are competing on brand visibility, or they are competing. There are several things they can do. And you see, like I said, when we introduced price regulation in 2015, that's what we expected. We expected the OMC to become innovative and be very competitive. Because prior to price regulation, there was one price for petrol all over the country. You never had the variations. But under price regulation, that's happening. But we will not say we are not concerned. So we are concerned and monitoring what's happening. That's how come we also come in and intervene when we have to ensure that in the midst of the competition, it is...
But the assurance is that, listen, we are doing what we have to do as a regulator. So let anybody be worried that, listen, we have seen this before, because we had in the past where one player was moving and ended up in some way and all those things.
So like you said, if you see these market shares moving, but the players are complying with all the regulations, what do you have to worry about? If the person is complying with all the regulations, paying the statutory levies, paying everybody they have to pay, and is being competitive and is giving consumers the best price as it can, and therefore is getting market share, why should you be worried? So unless there's evidence that they are doing something wrong, which there is none.
But based on your regulation, nobody should be worried that any player is not doing the right thing and that is why they've reached there.
No, nobody will gain market share because they are doing the wrong thing from what we are seeing. So what we are seeing is pure competition. And we, as much as possible, regulate, supervise, and ensure that everybody is compliant. So if anybody has evidence that somebody is doing something untoward, our doors are always open for such evidence, because you see, you can also assume that as a regulator, you see everything. But if you see something like that, you can report to the regulator, and then if you can say that, oh, I reported, I didn't do anything about it. So we are open, our doors are open to receive that.
About in 30 seconds, in terms of outlook, how do you see the industry and how regulations is moving forward?
So I think our industry has become very, very dynamic, and a lot of things are happening. So we, as a regulator, together with our licensees, I think there's a lot of change happening because of the dynamic nature of the industry, like I've said. But what we assure consumers is that we'll continue to work with our players to ensure that consumers will go to the pump and get fuel, quality fuel at all times.
Well, it says quality fuel at all times. Another verdict is out there, whether indeed the regulator is doing its job to ensure that indeed you're satisfied with what they're doing or not. This is PM Express Business Edition. Have a great day.